What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and finally, Chris Rock is saying something about the Oscars smack, although he isn't saying much. You might remember when he opened up his comedy tour, he slightly addressed it, but he basically said he was still processing the situation. And now, at another one of these comedy shows, he kind of sort of addressed the situation, but what he basically said is that he's willing to talk about it, and he is going to talk about it. He's just waiting to get paid. Now, that could mean a lot of different things, and we'll break down what that may mean in just a moment. But let's just take a closer look at some of these details. Chris Rock has shed a smidge of light on how he feels about Will Smith slapping him at the Oscars, but he says he won't reveal more until he receives one thing: cold, hard cash. The comedian told a live audience on Friday that he would not be talking about the Oscars until he was compensated, presumably meaning somebody ponying up for his exclusive account. This, according to a report from the Palm Springs Desert Sun, which detailed his set in California and the material referenced as Chris continues his national comedy tour. Here's what Chris reportedly said in full. "I'm okay. I have a whole show, and I'm not talking about that until I get paid. Life is good. I got my hearing back." The strange thing, if Chris means he's waiting on a network of some sort to pay him for a sit-down, you gotta imagine he and his team have already been approached by every broadcast company in the game at this point. Maybe they just haven't offered enough. And yeah, I definitely believe that. I definitely believe that tons of networks and different media outlets have already reached out to Chris trying to get some type of sit-down, some type of exclusive interview, but maybe they aren't offering enough. But of course, there's another slightly more sinister way to interpret his remarks. Perhaps he's talking about a civil lawsuit against Will Smith, where he could potentially get paid that way too. Or he might just be joshing altogether. It's unclear how serious this comment is, but considering the context, Chris seems to be in good spirits and carrying on well. In any case, the Desert Sun has more deets about what's in Chris' set, and it's interesting. They say he took a lot of shots at celebs and politicians, including Hillary Clinton, the Kardashians, Meghan Markle, and others. He also reportedly made fun of corporations and their diversity initiatives, while also invoking his family life, being single, and cancel culture as it relates to offending people these days. The Desert Sun said he got a standing ovation at the end of his show. It does seem that Chris is opening up more and more as his tour rolls on. Remember, initially, he said that he was still processing the smack. Now it appears he is finding humor in the whole thing. That, or he is just masking up how he really feels with his comedy chops. Time will tell if and when Chris speaks on this officially. So, like they stated, there's various different ways that you could try to interpret this. He's saying that he is waiting to get paid. So, let's break down the ways that this, or what this could possibly mean. Possibly, he's waiting to get the right number from one of these media outlets to sit down for an interview. That's a possibility. He's just waiting for them to throw out the right price. Maybe he's waiting on an exclusive deal for a Netflix stand-up show or some type of stand-up show where he will basically do a whole new set in which he talks about this. And he could turn it into its own Netflix special, get paid millions. Maybe he's waiting to get paid that way. Or maybe he's still possibly thinking about suing Will Smith. maybe that's still a possibility in his eyes. And he knows that if that is the case, maybe it's best for him to still remain quiet. Maybe him and Will Smith will reach some type of settlement. And in that settlement, there will be a clause in which Chris Rock can no longer address the situation. Maybe Will Smith's camp will reach out to him and pay him a certain amount if he doesn't do a stand-up special about it. It's very possible that there will be a bidding war between Will Smith's camp and these media outlets. And maybe Will Smith's camp is willing to pay him more than the media outlets will pay him to talk, to be quiet. That's a possibility here. Will Smith's camp may be paying him to be quiet, and they may pay him more to be quiet than these media outlets will pay him to talk. That's something we have to think about. I do think that he's still possibly going over the possibilities of suing Will Smith and what that might mean for him. Although I don't think he really wants to do that, because at the end of the day, he didn't even want to press charges. Also, I think that he is contemplating that maybe the Academy, the Oscars, owe him some money. After all, it was up to the Academy and the Oscars to protect him that night. And they didn't protect him in that moment, and they didn't make sure he was protected afterwards. So I think that it's a possibility that the Academy or the Oscars might have to pony up some money to Chris Rock. That's a possibility as well. Now, that's a possibility I haven't seen many people talking about. But ever since this happened, it's been on my mind, like, could Chris Rock sue the Oscars or the Academy or the people responsible for throwing the show, seeing as he was put in harm's way, assaulted, and left in danger throughout the rest of the show afterwards? I think that's a possibility. That's definitely a possibility here. But who knows how or when we will really hear what he has to say. We just know he's waiting on his money first. And I do not blame him one bit. There's a lot of money to be made out of this situation. The Oscars had better ratings than they had in a while. And you got to believe that more people are going to tune in the Oscars next year than they did last year. So the Oscars is going to make money off of this. Jada, she's going to do a red table talk. She's going to make money off of this. Chris Rock, I think the best thing he could do, because he looks the best out of this whole situation. Chris Rock is coming out on top. So maybe the best thing he can do is just sit back and wait for the right price to be thrown out there and capitalize off of this as much as possible. Because it's clear the fans are showing support. I plan on going and seeing a Chris Rock comedy show. Whenever he gets closer to me in his tour, I do plan on going to see him. And I know a lot of people are going to see him that necessarily weren't going to go to see him before this. So I think this is actually done. It's having a positive effect on Chris Rock's career while having a negative effect on Will Smith's career. But another thing I want to touch on here. When they said what his comedy set is about, his new comedy show, I think this shows you why Chris Rock wasn't really protected in that moment. Because you see, Chris Rock's new show, he's calling out cancel culture. He's calling out these diversity initiatives that are at these big corporations like Coca-Cola and Disney, who have these like race training exercises now. And he's calling that out. And he's calling out people like Hillary Clinton. So in reality, Hollywood probably doesn't like Chris Rock that much anymore. Because Chris Rock isn't going with the official Hollywood narrative. He's calling out Hillary Clinton. He's calling out diversity and inclusion initiatives at corporations. He's calling out cancel culture. That's against everything Hollywood believes. So when you wonder, why was Chris Rock smacked and no one really consoled him? Yet they went and hugged on Will Smith and patted him on the back and gave him a standing ovation. It's because Will Smith and his family, they're very much part of the Hollywood machine. They promote the Hollywood agenda. Will Smith's kids are a perfect example of what Hollywood wants your kids to be like. Will Smith is a perfect example of what Hollywood wants to put out there. People in a messed up relationship with messed up kids, all type of messed up stuff going on. Jada Smith getting her poo nanny played with by her grandma when she was 9 years old. This is the type of stuff they like to put out there. So that's why Will Smith wasn't carted away. That's why Will Smith wasn't dragged away. That's why all of these actors went and patted him on the back and cried with him and hugged him and clapped for him, while they sat there and did nothing to console Chris Rock. Because at the end of the day, Chris Rock doesn't go with their official Hollywood narrative. Chris Rock makes fun of their Hollywood narrative, and they know that. So deep down, they don't like Chris Rock. Deep down, they're on Will Smith's side, because Will Smith is part of the agenda. He helps promote the agenda. Like I said, his kids are a walking billboard of what Hollywood wants your kids to turn into. And Chris Rock's kids are nothing like that. And Chris Rock is calling out all of this totally stupid garbage that Hollywood does. And that's why in that moment, Chris Rock wasn't protected. Chris Rock wasn't consoled. No one was worried about how Chris Rock felt. Did you see Denzel going and seeing how Chris Rock felt? Did you see Samuel L. Jackson going to see how Chris Rock felt? Did you see Tyler Perry going to see how Chris Rock felt? No. They were all there consoling Will Smith in that moment. Because they know that Chris Rock goes against the grain. Chris Rock isn't with all of this woke Hollywood garbage. So therefore, Chris Rock's feelings did not matter in that moment. No one cared about Chris Rock in that moment because they know Chris Rock isn't necessarily their ally like Will Smith and Jada are. So this right here, his new comedy set, says so much. The type of things he's joking about and covering, it says so much. And it should show you as to why Hollywood doesn't care about Chris Rock. And still, throughout this entire situation, none of this story has been about how Chris Rock feels. This Will Smith story has just gone in all types of different directions. And I've been riding the roller coaster right along with you all. But at the end of the day, the main thing that no one is talking about is Chris Rock. This has turned into something that's all about Will and Jada now, and Chris Rock is kind of taking the background in this whole story. Because Chris Rock's feelings were the last thing that most people really cared about. They were the last thing that people considered. And I made a video about that already. And I think it's important to shed light on how Chris Rock feels about the situation. I think it's important to shed light on how Hollywood treats people. And like I said, this new stand-up show that he has, and the stuff that he's covering in the stand-up show, it shows you why Hollywood reacted that way. Why Hollywood showed no sign of caring about Chris Rock in that moment. It's because he's talking about Hillary. He's talking about cancel culture. He's talking about all this woke garbage that Hollywood likes to perpetuate and push down our throats nonstop. But I want to know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. Do you think Chris Rock should speak out now, or do you think he should wait for a big healthy paycheck? What do you think Chris Rock means by this? Do you think he plans on getting paid by Will Smith because he's going to sue him? Do you think he's waiting on one of these talk shows, Good Morning America, or someone to give him enough money to sit down for a talk? Do you think he's waiting on Netflix or someone to pay him for a comedy special in which he addresses it? Which way do you think Chris Rock plans on getting paid from this situation? Let me know down in the comments below. But while you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you on the next video.